We're going to be together this semester. I know some of you, I see some familiar faces, but hopefully you'll enjoy the class. So this is, so as usual, let me hand out the syllabus. And then, because if I don't go over it, you won't read it. So let's go over it, okay? And so let me give some copies. In the meantime, I'm Ayşe Özgür Pehlivan. So I've been at Bilkent since 2011. So this is, I don't know, like probably the 8th time or whatever I'm giving this course. So if you take a copy of them, so let's go over the syllabus. So basically, my office is actually on the first floor of the, like the FEAS building. It's A110, so you have all these information. I put my office hours there, but those of you who know me, actually they know that, I put some office hours here, but, like you're more than welcome to come at any time. My door is always open. If I have anything to do, I'll let you know. Okay, I'll say that, oh, I have some stuff to do, come back later. So if you have any questions, any stuff to ask, and if you want to see me, you can do it anytime. But the official office hours are actually on Tuesdays from actually 1:40 to 3:30. Okay, so I know that some of you might have class during that time, so don't worry about it. So you'll see throughout the semester that I'm pretty approachable and like reachable at any time. So any of you? Okay, so everyone has a copy of the syllabus? Good, great. So what are we going to do in this course? So let me actually read it. It says course objectives. So this course is going to be a more mathematical and detailed version of actually ECON 101, which is Introduction to Microeconomics. So how many of you have taken ECON 101? Okay, so how many of you haven't taken Econ 101. Okay, so this is actually, you'll see that even though this is a more mathematical and detailed version, for those of you who haven't taken any Econ 101 class or any introductory Econ class, I'll actually try to, that's what you probably like and don't like about this course. I'll try to actually link every mathematical concept as much as I can to some sort of economic, intuition. So I'll try to provide the economic intuition behind them. So sometimes, from time to time, you're going to see that you're going to get some questions, or during class, or even in the exams, you're going to get some questions that, oh, you have a derivative here now, but your grandma, she doesn't know any calculus, she doesn't know any derivatives, she doesn't know much math. Now explain this to her. So sometimes people hate these grandma, what they call the grandma questions, but you'll see that. So the whole point of this course, you're going to see it, you're going to see that you'll have lots of mathematical models, and it's going to be lots of math. But you'll see that the whole point is actually, we're not doing it just so that, we have some math skills or whatever. But what is important is actually the economic intuition, the economic meaning of those equations, of those derivatives, okay? So that's why I'll try to do my best to provide that economic intuition behind those mathematical objects, okay? So, for those of you who haven't taken, so then we can actually go back to syllabus again, but for those of you who haven't taken economics class, do you know what economics is? So at least, okay, so it's actually the study, okay, economics is the study of choices people, by people we mean individuals like consumers, you guys, firms, or even governments make to attain their goals given their scarce resources, okay? So they're like, if you take any econ, introductory econ course, this is what they're going to tell you. People have unlimited wants, okay? But resources are limited. So what are we going to do? Right? So because we want, but in this course, for instance, you're going to see that there could be cases where these wants are kind of, they're not unlimited, they could be limited, but still we have actually some limited resources. So how can we satisfy these wants, right, these needs with our limited resources, with our scarce resources? Economics is actually the science of this. So we're trying to answer, you know, like there could be any question that you could think of in economics, you can put it into this framework. Oh, we need to satisfy all these needs. Oops, our resources are limited. What should we do? Okay? And this is actually very similar. So this is basically, you would like to, for instance, you would like to satisfy these wants, right? And you want to reach the maximum of them as possible, right? So if you actually think of it like that, so you would like to maximize, okay, let's start a little bit. You would like to maximize, let's say, your happiness, okay? But your resources are limited. For instance, you would like to watch your favorite series, right? Let's say all the time. That's what I asked in the attendance, actually. So let's say you want to watch your favorite series, or you want to sleep, you know, a lot, but you have to come to school as well, right? So what is actually limiting you? What is the limited resource there, right? If you want to watch your series, you want to go on a holiday, you want to go out with your friends, time, right? Also, if you want to go out with your friends all the time, if you want to go to movies, if you want to buy everything that you like, what is also limited? Money, right? So you might say that, Hocam, my parents are not giving me enough, you know, like giving me enough money or whatever, right? So it doesn't have to be related to money all the time. It could be your time, right? But what is important is that your resources are limited. So what you try to do, you try to be as happy as possible, right? You're going to see that you would like to maximize your happiness, your well-being, what we're going to call utility later, okay? But you have some limitations. So you would like to maximize some stuff, okay? But it's going to be subject to some constraint, okay? So whatever that is. So this is actually what we call in math a constrained optimization, right? You would like to optimize, you want to maximize something, but you're limited. You have to satisfy certain conditions, okay? Or you want to minimize something, but again, it's actually, you have to satisfy some conditions, okay? So you see that the meaning of economics, right? So what we do in economics is actually it has some sort of a counterpart in some mathematical problem, right? It's like a constraint optimization. So this is what we will see in this class, okay? So whenever you think that, oh, Hocam, this is actually a little bit too much math and I feel that I'm kind of getting lost, always think that, okay, whatever we do here, it's actually go back to the very basics, the definition of economics in some sense. We're trying to, you know, like maximize our wants, we're trying to maximize our well-being, our happiness, right? Subject to some constraint, okay? So you'll see that in this course, we will be dealing with most of these type of problems. For consumers, they would like to maximize their utility, their well-being, their happiness, okay? You'll see that for firms, guess what? They would like to maximize what? Profits, right? So, or you're going to see that they would like to minimize their costs, okay? Or for government, what do you think government would like to maximize or minimize? But of course, a benevolent one, not, you know, like... So this is actually, so they would like to, right, actually maximize a benevolent government who is actually working for the, you know, like benefit of its actually citizens or whatever. It actually would like to maximize public welfare, right? So this is basically the case. But again, while they're doing it, they have a limited budget, right? Their resources are limited. So this course is going to be actually all about this. From this, and we will try to teach you those techniques so that you can have all these economic questions, but you can convert them to some sort of, you know, first we'll actually talk about it. You can actually express them using models, right? That question, you will try to answer them using some models, and when we write those models, they will be mathematical models, okay? And we will try to solve them. Okay, and then you're going to see that that's why we're actually, we will try to give you all these techniques, and we're going to have math in this course, but you'll see that, you know, that math is there, but the original problem is the very basic one, okay, that you started with your introductory econ course, okay? So this is what it says. So this course is a more mathematical and detailed version of Econ 101. We will cover similar subjects, but the analysis will be at a more advanced level and in greater detail. Therefore, this course will require some previous knowledge of economics, you know, like Econ 101 content. But as I said, that for those of you who haven't taken Econ 101, I'll always make the references, okay? So don't worry about it. And some previous knowledge of math. So there is this chapter in your book, chapter 2, which covers all the math materials. Sometimes what they do in this course, they do a math review, you know, like for a week. But I don't like that. So what I always do, is that whenever there is a need for those concepts, I actually make a small note. I'll just remind you those math concepts, and I'll tell you, okay, here, actually here it is, where we're going to use this, okay? So basically that's what we will do. So you can, whenever you want to actually remember some stuff, you can actually check out chapter 2 of your book, but you'll see throughout the course, whenever there's a need with some, you know, like math theorem or whatever, I'll always remind you, and actually along the way, okay? Not, I don't like the fact that to give a, you know, math review in the beginning of the course, because you're going to forget about it anyways, right? And this way it's much more, I think, intuitive, that you will say that, oh, here there was a problem, we needed a tool like this, okay, that's why we're using it, okay? So basically, so it says you should be familiar with the material in chapter 2 of our textbook, but as I said that, I'll just provide the necessary tools whenever you know, we need them. So in this course, first we will analyze the optimizing behavior of rational agents, consumers, and firms. So for those of you who have taken Econ 101, right, or who have taken actually an introductory econ course, what was the, you know, like what were the words that you use the most? Or in economics, even if you haven't taken, you know, like any introductory econ. So far, I haven't used any, you know, like, but what else? Opportunity cost, but what else? So like, equilibrium. Okay, these are the ones who, exactly, right? So I would expect you to say prices, money, hocam, right? Or, you know, the second probably things that you would tell me would probably, so some of you were good econ students, so you said opportunity cost, equilibrium, so we'll see why they're very important. But actually, most of the people would say what? Demand and supply, right? So basically what we will do in this course is that, remember we had the demand, and for instance, usually we were drawing a demand curve like this. So this was price, this was quantity, and actually this was our demand curve, right? And we were drawing a supply curve like this, right? Do you remember? How was it? Was it downward sloping or upward sloping? Upward sloping, right? Good. So actually this is right? So this was the supply curve. So we will see all of these. So you know what we will do in this course? We're going to learn what lies behind this demand curve. So this is going to take probably, almost like, I don't know, like take plenty of weeks, okay? But you'll see that at the end of the day, so whatever you have seen in your introductory class, we actually understand where this downward sloping demand curve come from, okay? You had some sort of an idea in your introductory econ classes, but you'll see that, we'll understand what lies behind this downward sloping demand curve. For instance, at the end of this course, you will actually, you will know it's actually possible to have an upward sloping demand curve, and you can actually, under what assumptions, right? What type of, let's say, consumers, what type of preferences would lead to, or what kind of conditions actually lead to an upward sloping demand curve, okay? So you'll see. But in your introductory classes, you just learned that, we have this downward sloping demand curve. Of course, we said something like the correct way of pronouncing it is actually ceteris paribus, but do you remember something called ceteris paribus? Right, so what did it mean?
Assuming everything.
Right, so when you hold everything else constant, right, this is what we said, that was actually called the law of demand. So when there's an increase in the price of the good, the quantity demanded would decrease, right? So that's what we were saying. So basically we will learn where this demand curve comes from, okay? So this is basically, first we will actually, that's why first we're going to see what we call the consumer theory, okay? And then we're going to learn about firm theory, and then we're going to learn about why, we have this upward sloping supply curve, under what conditions this is upward sloping. Is it short run? Is it long run? There would be many, many details that we would be actually considering. That's going to be the second half of the course, okay? And then remember, what did we do in the introductory econ classes? We had the consumers, we had the firms, we had the demand side, we had the supply side, and then what did we do?
You put them together.
So we brought them together, right? And we analyze, how individuals behave in markets, right? How do they interact? That's when remember, prices were determined. We said that prices are determined via the interaction of, right, buyers and sellers. So basically what we will do is that at the end of this course, we're going to put these demand and supply together in a market, and we will see how prices are determined, okay? And that's going to be basically the end of this course. So you'll see that we're going to cover what lies behind this in much more detail, okay? So that's what it says. It says that in this course, first we will analyze the optimizing behavior of rational agents, consumers, firms, their responses to changes in relative prices, and the duality between their aims, okay? So you'll see. Then we will analyze these agents' behavior in a market, and we will study what we call partial equilibrium, okay? And then, if time permits, towards the end of at the very end of this course, we're actually going to put it in a more general equilibrium and welfare framework. So basically, maybe some of you remember, but what we mean by partial equilibrium is that, for instance, we're going to, if there's a change, let's say, like cotton prices, if there's a change in cotton prices, or there's some sort of a change in cotton market, okay? So we will analyze only what's going to happen in that particular market, okay, in this course. So basically, that is what we call partial equilibrium analysis, right? So if there's a change in, let's say, if there's a change in cotton market, or if there is actually a change in cotton prices, okay? Or if there is some sort of a change which affects the cotton market. So suppose we study what's going to happen in the cotton market, but do you think in the real economy it stays there? Or it would affect some other markets as well?
It would.
Right? Which one do you think? Like, that's why I gave the example cotton, so that you can actually textiles, right? So like whatever t-shirts, pants, right? It would definitely have an effect on the textile market. So you would want to consider, if you want to understand what's happening in the real world, right? You might want to consider how this would affect the textile market as well. But then, then textile markets might affect some, other markets as well. So if you actually, whenever you don't you don't limit your analysis to a particular market, but you would like to know what's happening to other markets as well. We call this a general equilibrium analysis, okay? But if you want to just understand what's happening in that particular market, we actually call this sort of partial equilibrium, okay? So in very basic words, this is actually how we could explain. So towards the end of the course, as I said, that if time permits, we're actually going to go over general equilibrium and welfare, okay? So this is basically the case. We have a textbook. So you'll see that the course is pretty self-contained, but it's good to have, like for these core courses, it's good to have a textbook that whenever you do not understand, what I tell here, or you needed some additional resource, it's good to have the book. Okay, so this is actually Microeconomic Theory, Basic Principles and Extensions by Snyder and Nicholson. Okay. So in this course, we're going to have actually one midterm exam, okay, and a final exam. And then we're going to have quizzes, okay? So you have the percentages given there. And there is an exam date which is set here, but it's tentative. So depending, whenever the, exam registration, thing is open, then I'll try to get this date, but we'll see. But make sure it's going to be around those times, okay? Right now it's set for November 13th, okay, Friday. So please make sure you arrange your personal schedule around the set exam dates, as there will be no makeup exams given, right? Only those with documented medical or other emergencies, of course, may make up a missed exam, so the classical stuff. So final exam is now, I plan it to be comprehensive, but, when the time comes, again, we'll talk. So each quiz will have an equal weight, and you'll see that quizzes can be announced or unannounced, okay? So about the FZ grade, so you will get an FZ grade in this course if you miss the midterm exam without a valid excuse, and or you miss more than half of the quizzes, okay? So this is basically the thing. Some important issues, like you should attend classes regularly. So I mean, if you come to class, you'll see that this is going to decrease your workload. So even if during the class you think that Hocam is saying some stuff, I'm not there, I don't understand what's going on, but subconsciously, right? So you are actually learning stuff, okay? So whenever you work for the exam or for the quizzes, you'll see that the fact that you come to class and then somehow you were exposed to whatever I was saying here helps, okay? Helps a lot, and it's going to decrease your workload. So I, recommend that you would come to, classes regularly, okay? So this is what it says. And also sometimes we might cover some additional material which is not in the book, and so that you would be responsible for those. So it's, also for that reason, it's better to come, okay? So, and also, of course, you guys are all grown up, so there's, I hope there won't even be a need to say this, but there is zero tolerance, for any kind of cheating, including plagiarism. So, in addition, please come to class on time. So I understand that, sometimes, and the class is in the mornings. I know I'm not a morning person, this is okay, but I'm really worried about the Friday one, right? So, and there's good news. So you know that our Friday class is at 8:40, but it's actually our spare hour. So we're starting this Friday, we will actually start at 9:40, okay? So good. But whenever there is a need, so that spare hour, actually we use it for, whenever we need to do some problem session, whenever we need to do some makeup class or whatever. whenever we need to use that hour, I'll actually let you guys know, okay, in advance that, oh, okay, hey guys, we're going to use the 8:40, unfortunately, we have to use this 8:40 hour on Friday, okay? But starting from this week, we will actually start at 9:40, okay? So, but I understand, even though it's at 9:40 or 10:40, some days you might not be here. It's not your econ day, I totally understand, okay? But then just try to be quiet. If you want to daydream, whatever. But, just respect. There might be some of your friends who might actually be interested in econ and, want to listen to me and the class, okay? So just try to respect their right to, learn stuff. So, but I was a student myself, so I totally understand, that you have some days, okay? But the whole idea is that you will see that if you come to class, if you listen to me, it's going to be much easier because the book is not going to provide you much of the intuition. The book is not going to, or your friend's notes, might not provide you, enough intuition and enough stuff for you to understand, okay? So this is basically it. So we have a tentative schedule here. So basically, I talked about it mostly. The first part, we're going to be dealing with the consumer theory. Actually, the second part, we will be dealing with the firm theory. We will try to understand, how firms actually behave, okay? And then once we understood that, we're going to bring them together and we will understand the partial equilibrium, what we call competitive model. So in this course, we're going to see only what we call perfect competition, okay? So from time to time, I'll try to give you the Turkish also, sort of the translated versions of those concepts because that might be useful, from time to time. So what is perfect competition? Do you remember? It's called tam rekabetçi piyasa, okay? So perfectly competitive market. So we will actually, so it means actually a market where you do not have, for instance, big firms like, let's say, Turkcell, or Avea, and what else we have? Vodafone, right? So you'll see that the perfectly competitive market is actually more of a market which is like, tomato producers, markets for, let's say, tomatoes, okay? So it's going to be a market where you wouldn't have much market power, okay, like Turkcell, or Vodafone or Avea has. You don't have big firms, but instead you have small firms. But this is actually, the market structure that we're going to cover. But actually, the firm theory, what we will learn how firms behave, you'll see that it would be independent of the market structure. So in this course, you will understand how Turkcell behaves, okay? How actually Apple behaves, how Samsung behaves, and such, okay? But then when we put them into the market, the only market structure that we're going to cover is going to be this perfectly competitive one, not the one that, like Apple and Samsung are in. That's going to be what you will learn in Econ 204, okay? So you're going to see much more, market structures there. And then that's why it's the continuation of this course, okay? And you'll see some strategic behavior, game theory, and all those kind of stuff there, okay? So this is basically what we will do in this course. So do you have any questions? No? Okay, yeah.
Is there a PDF version of the textbook?
I don't know. I'm sure you guys have better skills than me, finding those stuff, but I don't know. So I'm not sure whether that is, very legal or, but I don't know. You should.
There are some legal.
Yeah. No, I know. There are some online versions of the textbook. I'm not sure. I don't think for this one. Okay. But if you want, I can check. Okay. So basically, that's actually it. Okay. So now, if you don't have any questions, so let me ask you this. So now we figured out what we will do. You'll see that this course is, and also this is, let me actually tell you this. So this is kind of what I say, the disadvantage of taking a micro, intermediate micro. So if you were taking the macro, intermediate macro, theory course, then, the concepts and the stuff that you would be seeing in this course, you would be able to hear that much more, about them in the news, about like sort of the inflation rate, right? The price inflation, central bank, what's happening to the exchange rate, dollar and such. So from in this course, we would be dealing with some stuff. You're going to see funny concepts. As I said, that I'll try to link them to the real world as much as possible. But don't forget that, so this course is going to introduce you all the fundamental models in economics. So these are fundamental even to your macro courses, okay? So how individuals behave, how firms behave, and how they're going to interact in the markets, okay? So this is very crucial, and even though you wouldn't hear much of the concepts that you would learn in this course in the news, okay, in the in the newspapers or like in TVs and such, but don't forget that this is actually, if you do not understand what's happening at the micro level, okay. So by the way, for those of you who doesn't know the difference between microeconomics and macroeconomics, microeconomics studies the decisions, the choices individuals make, okay? And macroeconomics is mostly dealing with the aggregates, okay? How the economy is actually working in general, okay? So, or as in, like they are dealing mostly, and they're interested mostly in concepts like growth, unemployment, like all these kind of inflation, how should monetary policy be, how should fiscal policy be, etc. Okay, so basically, but what is very fundamental, understanding aggregates, is that you have to understand how individuals are behaving. Even central banks, after the recent crisis and such, right? So even there was this, like ECB. You know what ECB is? European Central Bank, right? So even in ECB's website, you would see that when we deal with aggregates, it turns out that, like in our analysis, we need to actually concentrate more on micro foundations, okay? So we need to understand how individuals behave. Then we should understand how, aggregates are, what's happening to the aggregates, okay? In some cases, like that's usually also the macro theory, it also builds on micro stuff, okay, how individuals behave and such, but it's very crucial, even if you want to be a macroeconomist, if you know good micro, you would be much more valuable, okay? So because you're going to probably take macro, and you would say that, oh, these stuff are much more interesting. But as I said, that the stuff that we would see are the fundamentals, okay? Even to macro. So that being said, alrighty, so we said that as, like economists, we try to solve basically these sorts of problems, right? We're solving some sort of a constraint optimization problem. We have unlimited wants or needs, or, many wants and needs, not maybe unlimited, kind of limited, but still a lot. But our resources are limited. Okay, so these are kind of the questions that we are dealing with. But as economists, how do we answer those questions? So what are our tools? Right, so we use what we call economic models, okay? So, but we're not the only ones. So what is a model? So we're going to use economic models. What is a model? So what is a
mathematical representation of the real world.
But is it exact representation of the real world? So let me call this, what is also called a model? Architects, right? So like the thing that they make of a building, like the smaller version, it's also called a model, right? So, but why do they need that model? Maquette, right? So for the ones, yes?
To actually predict, or to actually see if these things are working out well, and to replicate the real world.
To replicate but is it the exact replication of the real world?
It's a low-cost simplification.
Right, so it is a simplified version of. So for architects, think about it, or like civil engineers, right, or like like contractors. I mean, you don't have to build the entire building to understand, like if I build this building, how it would look like, right? So maybe you want to change some part of it, but you want to actually represent, okay, if I change this part, this part's going to fall, right? Or this part's not going to work. So, but in order to understand what's going to happen, you see, you don't have to build the entire building, right? You can just have a model of it. So it is very helpful. So a model is actually an economic model. It's actually a simplified version, okay, of real life or real world, okay? So it's a simplified version. So basically, you'll see that sometimes they will be too simplified, and then you would say that, hocam, this is a really silly model, right? This is not realistic, come on. But of course, we have to start with those ones, understand what's going on, and this is what you would do in your further, courses, sort of the courses that you're going to take in your further studies. You would see that first here you're going to see the very basic models, and then you're actually going to drop those simplifications, okay? What do we call those simplifications? Remember, they're called what?
Assumptions.
They are called assumptions, right? So this, how do we simplify? We actually use basically assumptions, okay? So as I said that, so for instance, I give this example in my Econ 101 classes, but when I was doing my PhD, I had some biologist friends, who were also doing their PhD, and one of them, I remember, they were going to the North Pole to do some, sort of like studies. So why do you think they were going to the North Pole? To observe, of course, like the creatures, species, whatever, right? But North Pole has its, what would you say about North Pole? North Pole, what is missing at North Pole? Heat, right? Temperature. So you know that whenever there is, there is heat, it's warm, actually things get much more complicated. You have much more complicated organisms. But at North Pole, you have very simple, right? So you have a very simple life. So that's why, of course, I mean, they also go to the Amazons and, to see what's going on. But, they were specifically, I mean, North Pole was important because life was very simple there. So because there was no heat and there were a few species, so it was much easier for them to understand, what's going on, to conduct some, to observe what's going on and such. But if you go to, let's say the Amazons, then it might not be very easy to isolate, right, one creature, right, one species from the other ones, right? But heat is missing at the North Pole, so it might be good to understand some sort of basic behavior of those creatures, whatever, okay, animals or species, okay? So that is actually pretty important. So you can think of models as our North Pole, right? So we try to understand what's happening at the North Pole. Once we understand that, then we can go to the Amazons, okay? So we're not the only ones using models, but in economics, you're going to see that we're going to use models to understand. These are abstract, some sort of abstract versions, okay, of real life, some very simplified versions of real life, okay, real world. Sometimes you wouldn't like them, and that's going to be the whole point. It's good that you don't like them, but sometimes even that simple model would be able to explain some stuff. Okay, so that is actually pretty important. So this is basically what we would do. So because we said that otherwise it would be too complicated. So for instance, the example that I gave, remember, if you want to understand what's happening to let's say, suppose government puts a quota. You know what a quota is? Let's say on cotton imports, okay? So the imported cotton from abroad, government puts a quota. So the quantity is limited by the government, okay? So they say you cannot import more than this much. So how would this affect the cotton market, right here, domestic cotton market? Or also, you might also want to look at the textile market, right? So, but you might say that I'm only going to look at how it would affect, like the cotton market and the textile market, but it might have some very, very indirect effect on steel market. Do you think if I say that I'm not going to look at any other markets like steel, whatever, do you think it's very unrealistic? No, right? So because as you would, but if I say I'm just going to look at how it would affect the domestic cotton market, right? But I'm not going to look at the textile market. Do you think it would be realistic? No, right? You might say that, hocam, I might understand that you abstract, like you assume that there is no effect on the textile market, there's no effect on the steel market. That I could understand. I'm not buying the textile one though, right? It would affect the textile market. So therefore, I want to have it there, okay? So you see that depending on your question, your assumptions might be unrealistic or they might be not that bad, okay? So this is basically what we would do. Or, for instance, in this course and also in many of your econ courses, we're going to assume that individuals, okay, they're all the same. Firms, they're all the same. Do you think this is the case? Is it, like what we have in the real world? Do you guys all the same? Are you guys all the same? No, yes? Yeah, of course you're all the same, right? So in the eyes of the Constitution or whatever, no, I'm not saying that you guys are all equal and, I like all of you equally, whatever, but you're not the same, right? You're different. Your preferences, what you like, what you don't like is different. Your budgets are different, right? So if I want to, in the real world, if I want to, take into account that all of you guys are different, then I have to write, like a single equation, a single sort of a model for each one of you, right? But sometimes, from time to time, you'll see that what we call heterogeneity of agents is important. For instance, they show, for instance, in the literature of international trade, they show that you should take into account, like the fact that firms are heterogeneous, okay? But in the beginning, when we try to understand the basic principles, what's going on, it's okay to assume that all firms are the same. It's okay to assume that all individuals are the same, okay? First, we're going to learn, and then you learn how to extend that model to heterogeneous firms, okay, when people are not identical. First, for instance, you might divide the class into two, okay? So then, group A and group B, these types and these types, and then you're going to extend it to a case, where everyone is different, okay? But we need to, so sometimes we would have these assumptions, we know that they're unrealistic anyways, but you would see that those models would say really good stuff, and they can explain the real world pretty well, okay? So just whenever you see a silly assumption, what we will do in this course, we'll agree that it's silly, but we'll see, how things work in that model. Okay, so this is basically what we would do. But of course, as every other scientist, what should we do? What should we find? Suppose we have a really nice model. It's a simplified version of real life. We simplified it. Okay, but then what should we do? We should, scientists would do what? They have some sort of a hypothesis in mind, and then what do? They go and they test, right? Test is the key magic word here. Of course, we have to also test the validity of our models. Okay, so basically this is what we do. Okay, so it's over. So let's continue in the second class. If I might forget, just remind me, okay?